Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Benjamin Z. Miller Investor Networking Group. It's so nice to have everyone here. Nice to have investors from around the world. We have these meetings every Sunday, and if you are seeing this on the internet, I want to encourage you to send an email to me, ben@benjaminzmiller.com, and you can get an invitation to our weekly meeting. You can meet hundreds of investors from around the world. We have investors from Europe and the Americas, and you can network and learn more about investing. So we've got an interesting presentation tonight. We're going to be talking about mezzanine lending. Mezzanine lenders, they sometimes get a reputation as being loan sharks, and we're going to talk about if that's really true. Are mezzanine lenders loan sharks? Well, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So what exactly is a mezzanine loan? So let's imagine that there's a multifamily property, maybe something that looks like this. And let's take an example that a mezzanine lender, a borrower, maybe the owner of a building like this, or he's going to buy the building or he already owns the building. Either way, no difference. He reaches out and he needs money perhaps for rehab, perhaps he needs money to do some improvements, or maybe he just needs cash for whatever reason. And he approaches a mezzanine lender and says, hey, can you loan me $250,000? Can you loan me $250,000? And I'll pay you a real high interest rate. And the mezzanine lender says, well, you've already got a loan on the property, but I can loan you the money at 18%. You already owe $1 million at 6% with your senior debt, with your first lien loan. So I can loan you $250,000 at 18%, but let's do this so that I feel safe about the deal. You've got the property in an LLC. Let's update the operating agreement of that LLC. Let's put in a clause where I can take ownership of the LLC and I can take over your position where I can start making payments on the $1 million at 6%, and I get 100% ownership if you stop making payments to me. And the borrower says, oh, I'm not going to stop making payments. Everything will be great. And the mezzanine lenders, lawyers, and everything, they come up with this agreement. So the operating agreement is updated. The borrower receives $250,000, and at this point, the borrower still owns the property. But we're going to take an example of what happens if the borrower stops making payments and how this can be so incredibly profitable for a mezzanine lender, how they could theoretically make $1 million on a loan of $250,000 while charging an 18% rate of interest. So once again, just to review, the first lien, the senior debt's $1 million at 6%. The mezzanine loan is at an 18% rate of interest, and it's $250,000. The paperwork is signed. Now, let's imagine that the borrower, for maybe a few months, maybe a year, whatever, they make the payments on time, they're doing good. And then the borrower also puts money into renovating the apartments. Maybe he puts in some new cabinets, maybe he redoes some of the flooring, he's made some improvements, and things are looking good, and the borrower is looking forward to getting a new appraisal at the higher value, and then repaying all of the debt. And then something bad happens to the borrower. Maybe he goes through a divorce. Maybe his wife leaves him. Maybe he gets involved in a nasty lawsuit. Maybe he loses another source of income and can't keep up with his first lien payments. Maybe he only has enough to pay the first lien, but not the mezzanine lien. Whatever happens, happens. And at that point, the mezzanine lender can either give a loan modification, and sometimes they do that, or they can say, you know what? We made you the loan, you failed, we're going to take the asset. So let's imagine that the mezzanine lender decides, I'm going to take the asset. So they simply take the asset through an expedited process. They don't even have to go through a foreclosure. They don't even have the expense of a foreclosure. So they get the ownership of it, but they take the ownership of it with a $1 million loan in place. So there's already the borrower's original $1 million loan that he has at Chase Bank, or he has it whatever bank it is that he has a loan at. Maybe it's a private money loan, maybe it's an old seller finance loan, we don't know. But now the mezzanine lender has it, and the mezzanine lender starts making payments on that loan. But now the mezzanine lender is also collecting the rent from the property, now has ownership, 100% ownership of the LLC that owns the property. And let's say the mezzanine lender holds on to it for a year or two. They might even do a few improvements to it, whatever. But at any rate, they finally put it with a real estate agent, a commercial real estate agent that lists it and markets it properly. And let's say that it sells for $2.5 million. And the $2.5 million sale, they pay off $1 million of senior debt and they pay off $250,000 of mezzanine debt. And then let's imagine there's some missed payments, missed interest payments, some legal expenses. In this example, that mezzanine lender could make $1 million on that deal. So that's how that works. They only loaned $250,000. They got some of the payments, and then they actually were able to take ownership of the property without even having to do a foreclosure. So how does mezzanine lender fit in? Well, you've got your senior debt, and then above your senior debt is your mezzanine debt. And then you have some other things, which would be sponsor equity. That's a down payment from the sponsor. And then you've got preferred equity, which is just above mezzanine and below sponsor. So that's how that works. Mezzanine loans, you see them in business acquisitions. You also see them in multifamily acquisitions. Those are two common areas where you see them. And basically the senior debt represents about the first 65%. And then you've got this middle layer, which could be preferred equity. Somewhere in there, you're going to see mezzanine, somewhere in this. And then the top 20% is usually a down payment. So that's how that works. So how much could you make as a mezzanine lender? Well, compare it if you're a bank type lender and you're making a 6% loan on $1 million over 5 years, you might get $300,000. If you're a mezzanine lender and you're making a loan of 18%, you'd collect $180,000 a year. In 5 years, you'd make $900,000. So there's far more upside to it. By the way, if you know someone that is interested in earning significant returns, if they would like to earn significant returns, you should introduce them to me. Just send me an email, ben@benjaminzmiller.com, and I can record you as someone that has made an introduction for me. And then in the future, if something happens, we can work out a deal where you get a finder's fee. So should mezzanine loans be in your portfolio? Well, this is something where if you would like higher returns in your portfolio, maybe you already have some bonds, but they're only paying a certain amount. If you'd like even more, you should consider mezzanine loans. If you're interested in that, send me an email, ben@benjaminzmiller.com. And it is something that definitely has some big, big advantages. So let's talk about the paperwork where you can understand how this all works. What exactly is the paperwork that's required on these mezzanine loans? Well, you have a collateral. That's the first thing. You've got the actual collateral, whatever the asset is. It could be a multifamily asset. It could be a business. It could be anything. And then you've got a pledge of partnership interest within the holding company, or even the operating company, whatever it might be. But you've got a pledge of the ownership of the company, of the partnership interests that are being pledged. And then the last thing you have is an intercreditor agreement. So what exactly is an intercreditor agreement? Well, the intercreditor agreement is simply an agreement that is taken out between the senior lender and it's between the senior lender and also the borrower and the mezzanine lender, where the senior lender is going to say, okay, I understand you're gonna make a loan, and I give you the right to make payments. I give you the right to make payments on this loan. I mean, what sort of a lender wouldn't want someone else jumping up saying, I'll make payments? There's very few of those that would not want that. So that's an intercreditor agreement, how that works. And it's something where the most important thing to the mezzanine lender is they want some sort of a notice from the senior lender that if the borrower quits making payments, the intercreditor agreement would, they want to know what's going on there. So that's an important thing. So we'll take a quick example of some examples. So the first one is, let's imagine a mezzanine loan for $2 million that is made to a company for, say, a period of 5 years. And let's imagine an interest rate of 10% that's compounded annually. We'll calculate what exactly is the interest payment in that scenario. And then we'll take a look at a company valuation where, say, company's valued at $5 million, and there's a 5% equity kicker that is included at the end of the loan term. How does that work out? Well, we'll work through it here. So the annual interest rate on $2 million at 10% is $200,000. The equity kicker, 5% on a $50 million company is 2.5 million. So the total return calculation, you've got total return of 200,000 times 5, plus you're going to add in 2.5 million. So a total return of $1 million plus 2.5 million, 3.5 million. Let's look at the debt service coverage ratio. So say a property development company, they take out a mezzanine loan for say 5 million. And this is on top of senior debt that already exists of 10 million. So there's already in place senior debt of 10 million. And now there's a $5 million mezzanine loan taken out. Let's say that the senior debt has interest payments of 6%. And let's say that the mezzanine loan in this case is 12%. So the debt service coverage ratio in that example, you're going to take the senior debt service, which is your principal amount of senior debt times the interest rate. So 10 million, remember it was a $10 million loan at 6%. Senior debt totals 600,000 a year. And now let's take a look at the mezzanine debt. Well, you borrowed 5 million at 12%. That's another 600,000. So the total debt service is 600,000 plus 600,000. It's 1.2 million. The debt service coverage ratio is 1.8 million divided by 1.2 million, which is 1.5. So now with exit strategy, let's take a look at another example where you've got a mezzanine loan, say that's of 3 million. Let's imagine a 3-year term for, let's say it's a manufacturing company. And the deal also includes a warrant that allows a lender to purchase 10% of the equity at the end of the term. So at a fixed price of a 5 million valuation for the company. So if at the end of the term, let's imagine that the loan ends, let's say the company's valued at 8 million, we will now calculate how much that works out to. So it's just a real quick calculation here. So you've got the equity value of the warrant exercise, which is 10% times a value of 8 million. So that's 800,000. Then you got the purchase price of the equity, which is 5 million times 10%, which is 500,000. And then you look at the profit, you're going to take the equity value at warrant exercise, and then you're going to subtract the purchase price of the equity. So the profit is 800,000 minus 500,000, and then the profit from the warrant is 300,000. So now let's take a look and put it all together at the effective return. Total profit from the loan is you're going to take the interest payments, add the profit from the warrant. And assuming that the interest is paid annually, you would have interest payments of 3 million times 10% for 3 years, yielding total interest payments of 900,000. So if you add that together, the total profit is 900,000 plus 300,000. So 1.2 million. So not a bad profit at all. I want to remind you to please fill out the sign-in sheet. And then if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit or would be interested in this sort of meeting that would like to meet investors from around the world, please invite them. We have these meetings every Sunday. We also have a Discord server where you can discuss deals and network with other people, but you also get the sign-in sheet where you can get the contact information for all of the other investors. I hope that helps, and I wish you good luck with your investing. So now I'm going to stop this and I'm going to take any questions. I'm going to stop the recording.